The United States has historically viewed Africa as a challenge to address, while China has regarded it as a land of opportunity. This contrast highlights the differing perspectives of the two nations towards the continent. Consequently, China's presence in Africa has surged in the last 10 years. Since the inception of China's ambitious Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, a decade ago, 149 countries globally, including 49 out of 54 African nations, have joined the initiative. This development has raised significant concerns within the U.S. government. Africa, one of the richest continents in terms of valuable resources, minerals, and commodities, has always been of strategic interest to the U.S. However, the American focus has primarily been on exploiting these resources rather than fostering the long-term development of Africa's people. In this script, we will emphasize the errors the U.S. has made and explore why numerous African nations are now turning to China for their future development. We'll also showcase some transformative Belt and Road initiatives by China that have significantly influenced Africa's prospects. Many Africans have changed their view of China due to the concrete outcomes of Chinese investments, including the construction of 100,000 kilometers of roads, 10,000 kilometers of railways, over 1,000 bridges, 100 ports, and various hospitals and schools. These projects instill hope in future generations and create opportunities for an improved quality of life. Rather than making similar infrastructure investments in Africa, the U.S. government has mainly focused on cautioning African leaders about the risks of partnering with China, aiming to counteract the trend of Chinese investment. This approach is disrespectful to African nations, as it assumes their leaders cannot make the best decisions for their own countries. U.S. approach to Africa. The United States has long viewed Africa through a lens of strategic interests, primarily focusing on the continent's rich resources. During the Cold War, Africa was seen as a battleground for influence between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. American policy was driven by the desire to prevent the spread of communism, which often resulted in support for authoritarian regimes that aligned with U.S. interests. This approach neglected the socio-economic development of African nations, fostering a legacy of instability and underdevelopment. Contemporary engagement. In recent years, U.S. engagement with Africa has been characterized by a mixture of aid, military assistance, and diplomatic efforts. Programs like the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, and the Millennium Challenge Corporation, MCC, have aimed to promote trade and investment, but their impact has been limited by bureaucratic hurdles and conditionalities. Moreover, initiatives such as the U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM, have emphasized military cooperation, which some critics argue prioritizes security concerns over developmental needs. Mistakes and missteps. Aid over investment. The U.S. has often focused on providing aid rather than fostering sustainable investments. This approach has led to dependency rather than empowerment. Aid, while crucial in times of crisis, does not build long-term economic stability or infrastructure. Conditional aid. U.S. aid often comes with stringent conditions, such as adherence to certain political and economic reforms. While these conditions are meant to promote good governance, they can be perceived as neo-colonial and disrespectful to the sovereignty of African nations. Diplomatic disrespect. The U.S. has been criticized for treating Africa as a monolithic entity rather than engaging with individual countries based on their unique needs and circumstances. This lack of respect is evident in diplomatic engagements where African leaders feel their voices are not adequately heard. Focus on security. U.S. policy has often emphasized counterterrorism and security, sometimes at the expense of economic development and human rights. This approach can alienate local populations and leaders who prioritize economic growth and social development. China's approach to Africa. The Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. Since the launch of the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, in 2013, China has invested heavily in infrastructure projects across Africa. The BRI aims to enhance global trade and stimulate economic growth across Asia, Africa, and beyond by developing trade routes reminiscent of the ancient Silk Road. Africa has been a significant focus of the BRI, with numerous large-scale infrastructure projects aimed at improving connectivity and boosting economic growth. Key projects and investments. Infrastructure development. China has funded and constructed major infrastructure projects across Africa, including roads, railways, ports, and airports. Notable examples include the Addis Ababa-Djibouti Railway, the Mombasa-Nairobi Standard Gauge Railway, and the Maputo-Katembe Bridge in Mozambique. These projects have significantly improved transportation and trade within the continent. Industrial investments. China has also invested in the development of industrial parks and special economic zones in countries like Ethiopia, Zambia, and Nigeria. These investments aim to create jobs, transfer technology, and boost local manufacturing capabilities. Energy projects. Chinese companies have been involved in the construction of power plants and renewable energy projects across Africa. These projects aim to address the continent's chronic energy shortages and support industrialization. Healthcare and education. China has built hospitals, schools, and vocational training centers in several African countries. These projects aim to improve public health and education, contributing to human capital development. Why Africa prefers China's model. Respect for sovereignty. Unlike the U.S., China engages with African countries on a bilateral basis, respecting their sovereignty and non-interference in their internal affairs. This approach is appreciated by African leaders who seek partnerships based on mutual respect. Tangible results. Chinese investments often result in visible and impactful infrastructure projects that directly benefit local populations. The rapid construction of roads, railways, and ports contrasts with the slower and more bureaucratic processes associated with Western aid. No strings attached. Chinese loans and investments typically come with fewer political conditions compared to Western aid. This makes it easier for African governments to access funding for development projects. Long-term partnership. China views its relationship with Africa as a long-term partnership. This is reflected in the continuous and increasing investments in various sectors, fostering a sense of reliability and commitment. Case studies of key projects. Addis Ababa-Djibouti Railway. The Addis Ababa-Djibouti Railway is a 760-kilometer railway that connects Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, with the port of Djibouti. Completed in 2016, this project has become one of the most important infrastructure projects in the Horn of Africa. It has significantly improved Ethiopia's import and export capabilities, contributing to a 15% increase in trade. Historical context. The original railway was built by the French over a century ago but had ceased operation for over 10 years before China stepped in to rebuild it. Impact: the new railway has reduced transportation costs and time, boosting trade and economic growth in Ethiopia. It has also created jobs and improved regional connectivity. Maputo-Katembe Bridge. The Maputo-Katembe Bridge in Mozambique is the longest suspension bridge in Africa, spanning over 3,000 meters. Completed in 2018, it connects the capital city of Maputo with the town of Katembe. Mombasa-Nairobi Standard Gauge Railway. The Mombasa-Nairobi Standard Gauge Railway (SGR) in Kenya is the country's most expensive infrastructure project, completed at a cost of $3.6 billion. Funded primarily by Chinese loans, the railway connects the port city of Mombasa with the capital, Nairobi. Initial success: the railway construction created over 30,000 jobs for Kenyan locals. In its first year of operation, it transported over 5.4 million passengers. Challenges: despite its initial success, the railway has struggled to become profitable, leading to concerns about Kenya's debt obligations to China. However, the project remains a vital part of Kenya's infrastructure, improving transportation efficiency and reducing travel costs. Criticisms and challenges. Debt trap diplomacy. One of the major criticisms of China's involvement in Africa is the concept of debt trap diplomacy. Critics argue that China's loans and investments lead to unsustainable debt levels for African countries, forcing them into economic dependency. However, it is important to note that throughout the 10-year history of the BRI, China has never seized a single asset from a country that defaulted on a loan. Instead, China has often restructured debts to provide relief. Africa, a continent rich in resources and potential, has become the battleground for influence between two global giants, China and the United States. Each brings its own approach and objectives, shaping the future of Africa in profound ways. As Africa rises, the continent's relationship.
Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Want to be the first to know when we upload a new video? Tap the notification bell. And we love hearing from you. Drop a comment below with your thoughts and questions. Lastly, share this video with your friends who are passionate about the social issues affecting the African continent.